Hey everybody, it's Professor Snart checking in as we get almost to the very last unit in our course, and really kind of like in the thick of finalizing our major writing projects for the course, submitting them or sort of like following through with them, and then we have one kind of wrap-up piece that's part of Unit 5. So it's actually just Wednesday, June, what is it, the 19th today when I'm recording this, so I'm getting way out in front, well, a little bit out in front. We're still looking at the very first due date here, at least as I'm recording this, for Unit 4. Then obviously we have a really important kind of turnaround here. So not just the usual kind of replies in a discussion board, but actual getting and giving feedback to your group members based on your professional email that you're drafting. Not sending it yet, but we're going to get there really soon. I'm actually traveling to a conference on Thursday, so I'll still be in, pretty easy email contact and be checking into Blackboard and all that kind of stuff, but it's a bit easier to record the actual video this way. So, and again, it's good to make sure that we're really on the same page here as we finish up, right, the main work for Unit 4 and then transition into 5, which is what I'm going to look at today. So just a quick reminder then, we'll walk through Unit 4 really quickly. I want to really stress that folks are making sure that their documents are set correctly, so they're being shared correctly. It's important, obviously, as we need to get to allow group members to provide feedback, so people have to be able to comment. They can't just view the document. We need the comment feature enabled, and then once you embed stuff in your portfolio, those Google Docs, they won't display correctly unless they're shared out correctly. So that's not sharing the portfolio itself. That's just a matter of setting the document sharing correctly. And it goes for any kind of a thing, whether it's a document, like a slide deck, or whatever the case might be. The sharing settings on that have to be correct so that it shows on your portfolio. And it's a little tricky because if you're signed into all your stuff, then you can look at your portfolio and it'll display perfectly fine, right? Because you're signed in, so it recognizes you. But as soon as you share that URL, the portfolio, your website URL, with the rest of our class, and we're not signed in to Google as you, obviously, we can visit your portfolio, but then there'll be all these spaces where documents should be appearing, but it's either just going to be blank or it'll say something like request access or whatever. So it's really important that each of us pay really, really close attention to getting those document sharing settings correct. Okay, so again, we're in the thick of drafting our professional email. We're just going to use a Google Doc to do the drafting of it. Obviously, you will cut and paste into whatever email program that you use once it comes time to send it. All the rules apply that we learned from the earlier units as far as drafting or writing this email. We should have all of the information, like your document should look basically like an email. It should have a subject line. It should have the individual, including the email address that you're going to have, whatever greeting that you're going to open with, the kind of body of the thing, which, as we learned with emails, is going to be fairly short. This is not like a 5-page essay that you're sending somebody. We do want to make sure that we are probably quoting a small piece of the fine print that we're interested in so that the recipient of our email has some context or sense of what we're talking about. You might have a couple of questions to ask, and that's okay. More than one is usually okay, but more than 2 or 3, and ironically, you start asking so many questions that you get no response. So we can improve our chances of getting an effective and useful response by asking a limited number of very pointed, specific questions, not just, I didn't understand this whole paragraph, can you explain it to me? That's unlikely to solicit a response at all, or if we do get something back, I don't know if it's going to be very useful. So again, we want to make these really pointed and succinct, and then an effective valediction, or that kind of goodbye part, using what you learned as part of the professional email research you've done. How do you craft this so it's cheery, it's not maybe too formal or too informal? The professional email is sort of a strange genre to work in because it often tries to find the sweet spot between way too formal, and so it sounds stiff and almost robotic, way too informal, so it doesn't sound professional at all. So we're trying to thread the needle between a lot of those kind of polar opposites. Here again, right? Reminding you in your document, click that share button, make sure that we have the can comment chosen, so that's not the default, so you have to go in and actively do that. And then whether you're posting your URL or embedding the doc in your portfolio, we need to really make sure that that share function is set correctly. Okay, so we're in our groups here. Again, if you're in my other 1102 class, you'll see different names, or these names won't be familiar to you, you know what I mean. So here's where we're going to post our document URLs, get feedback from our group members. Again, it's really important that we've shared it correctly so people can use that comment feature. Looking for between 5 and 10 comments, but it's more the quality than just the sheer number. I'm not just going to count and assign a grade based on that. Have you shown evidence as the reader of this professional email that you've really taken the time to sort of understand what the person is, is trying to do, not just fixing typos or making kind of abstract suggestions like you should make this flow better. That might be true, right? But maybe make a suggestion about how, or why doesn't it flow very well right now? Things like that. So really trying to dive in and be as helpful as possible. It's sort of the golden rule, right? You want to do that for other people because clearly that's the kind of useful feedback you want for your own work too. So make sure that you, as the author of your document, don't go in and start resolving those comments. It's a little tricky timing-wise because I need to jump in there and see what people have commented because that's a big part of the grade. I might also leave some comments, but truthfully, I want to sort of leave that space for peer-to-peer feedback. But don't, as the author, go either resolving those comments because then I can't see them and it makes it really tricky to assign the grade to the other people in your group. Keep in mind that there are already threads created for each of the groups here, so you just have to find your thread, jump in there, and you're either posting your URL or visiting the other people and using the comment feature in in Google Docs to leave some comments, some helpful comments. You want to complete your annotated bibliography. So we've had 5. We're now going to build it out to 10 sources. Again, keeping in mind that these can be, a variety of different types, covering a variety of different fields that are, in whatever ways you think are related to your fine print. You want to be careful, especially as we get up right to 10, that's quite a few, that you're not just duplicating the same basic source over and over again. So it's not literally the same one, but it's really kind of the same information over and over. So try to find some variety in there. We want to keep in mind that at least 3 should be from academic databases. That's like a subscription database that you would find through the COD library, if you have access to another institution's library. Often public libraries will provide access to patrons to database material. But this, again, isn't just stuff you're Googling. Even if it comes from what you think is a reputable source, we want the experience of searching for material in that database search engine. So again, not Google or not just a general web search. So it's really not about the source per se, it's about the method that you use to find that source. Keep in mind that we want to use MLA citation formatting when we format those entries, and then obviously it's an annotated bibliography like we've done before. So a well-developed paragraph that's giving some basic information about the source, some context, summary of the information, maybe why it's applicable to your, it's in the sphere of your fine print somehow. So kind of walk us through that. And then we're going to update our portfolio, and that kind of wraps up everything for Unit 4. So notice that we haven't sent our email yet. So obviously the next logical step, once I scroll a whole bunch and find my way into Unit 5, the very first thing that we're going to do, or that you're going to do, is to send your email. So I've set up a little discussion board. Do this like right away. Once you're done sort of like revising, doing whatever you need to do to your professional email to get it in the best possible shape that you can, you want to do a couple things. So you're going to cut and paste that text into your preferred email program, whatever that happens to be. Make sure or be careful that the formatting doesn't get all screwed up. Sometimes that happens in cut-paste situations, so you might have to attend to that a little bit. Send the email, so you're actually going to send this off to whomever you've targeted. Grab a screenshot like from your sent items to sort of prove that you've sent the email, or if you get a response right away, that would be great. If you get maybe more like an auto-generated response, like we have received your email and we'll respond to you in whatever, you could post that. So just anything to sort of show that you've sent the email. And then the other thing that I want you to plunk in here is the URL to the final version of your professional email. This might be a different document entirely, rather than, let's say, the one you were working to draft in, because you want to be careful about not, excuse me, not altering those comments or doing anything in there. So maybe you've created two documents, but whatever it is, post the URL to that the final version of your professional email, because now that we've sent it, we're pretty much done with it. And that kind of wraps up the whole fine print project. We've done the bibliography, you've drafted your email, you've sent it out, and now hopefully, ideally before our course ends, you'll get a response that you can report back on. I'll build that piece of our course out once we get right towards the end. But now we're going to transition into our very last assignment. And so this is looking at the very last outside due date that we've got. Again, I'm getting a little bit ahead here, but it's good to have it all sort of mapped out. So there's two things that we're going to do, and I'll actually work backwards from the main assignment. So in this final reflection assignment, you are going to compose a text. And I've left that really ambiguous here because part of what you're going to do is choose what format to do this in. So maybe it'll be a doc, but maybe you'll decide that a doc isn't actually the best rhetorical mode, like it's not the best choice for this particular rhetorical situation. So just like we've done throughout our course, we're really having you be conscious of what's the rhetorical situation I'm in, who am I as the sender, what's the thing I should create, and who is the audience. And in this case, it's fairly, conventional academic thing where you are the student. The assignment, right, prompts you to choose a particular kind of text to create, and obviously I, as your professor, am the primary audience here. So what you're going to do in this text that you create, again, not necessarily just a Google Doc, it could be some other thing that you think is going to be more effective for this particular assignment, is you are going to revisit all of the various course objectives, and there's quite a few of them, but a lot of them, are, you'll be able to come up with examples from your work like almost immediately. It's not going to take a whole bunch of brain work to do this. You are going to connect your work for the class, whether it's big project stuff or smaller things that we did in any of the units that we've done, but work that's really particular to you, and attach that work to the various, all the different objectives. So like, how did you and the work that you've done throughout the course, how does it prove that you've sort of met the objectives? So in some ways it's pretty straightforward, kind of a reflection piece looking backwards on the work that you've done and how does that work point to each of the objectives for our class. Again, the assignment is fairly straightforward. You're keeping it really specific to stuff that you've done, not just generic assignments that we've done, but like what did you do for that assignment? The trick is really, again, a sort of test of your ability to navigate this rhetorical situation. What is the text, the artifact, the thing that you create? What do you think is going to be most effective for this particular assignment? Okay, so again, lots of different possibilities here. Again, attaching work that you've done, almost like quoting yourself throughout. And then, right, we wrap up as usual, just building out your portfolio one last time. Yet another reminder about the sharing part, because it's like really important to do. And that pretty much wraps up our course. Obviously, as I'm recording this, we're still a ways out from doing it, but that's pretty much it. So in preparation for this final reflection assignment, we have the first thing that we're doing after we've sent our email and kind of wrapped that thing up, is a brainstorm. So I built out a slide deck. We're all going to be working in the same deck. So again, as usual, be careful not to overwrite something or alter the whole template for the thing, or just, chunk it all up. If you need more space, you're more than welcome to add new slides. The assignment itself is in the slide deck, but it's fairly straightforward. Each of the slides will list one of the course objectives. And so all we're going to do, or all you're going to do, is provide at least one example for at least two of the course objectives, right? So it's a big group brainstorm. So I might go into This first one, so I might think, okay, is there a way that we practiced writing as a process involving all of these steps? And I mean, that was our whole course, right? I'd want to get a little more specific about it, but that was the whole thing that we did. We did all of this inquiry part, like what's my fine print? Obviously, we did the research part. We're doing the feedback part right now. You made revisions. So again, kind of a no-brainer. Just make sure that you're really specific about what you did. So again, this slide deck where we're all jumping in here is just going to have a bunch of possibilities for what you might cite as an example as you build out your whatever text you choose to build for the final assignment. So we're going to brainstorm in here all together, and then you're going to build out your own for this final assignment. Okay, so that pretty much takes us through to the end, right to the end of our course. The 5 weeks really flies by. Again, I'm recording this on the Wednesday, so we still have a ways to go, a week and a bit. Really, really important part of our class here. Drafting your email, sharing it correctly, giving valuable or meaningful feedback, finishing out your bibliography, again, updating your portfolio, and then jumping into Unit 5 where you're sending your email, posting the URL to the final version of that email, and then going into the final assignment where we have a little brainstorming piece, and then the assignment itself that wraps up our course, and that's pretty much it. So I'll jump in with a couple more video updates before we're completely done, but hopefully the path forward is fairly clear. You have a good sense of the work that's out there in front of you and what tasks are on your plate. Obviously the due date structure in place, and again, if you have questions, concerns, things aren't working the way that you had wanted them to or hoped that they would, by all means shoot me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.